Hi, my name is Ben Biskovich, physical therapist, owner of Heal Strong for Life. Concierge physical therapy and personal training for people mostly over 45 who want to strength train, raise their metabolism, and do mobility work so that we can make the most of the rest of our lives. Today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all the research and my experience as a personal trainer and physical therapist, as an aging athlete myself, to tell you what really works, cut through all the noise, and give you a functional game plan how to strength train, how often, and how to do the mobility work to make the most of it. So this goes back to 1992 when I was an undergraduate at the University of Washington. I put myself through school being a personal trainer at a Nautilus facility. And this is a Nautilus facility that really focused on a subset of super slow, where instead of doing a 2-second positive and a 4-second negative, it's a 10-second lifting of the weight and a 5-second lowering. So essentially just like lifting moderately heavy weights very slowly until they feel heavy, doing one set to failure, 4 to 8 repetitions per set, working out 3 times a week. That was what we were doing, about 30 years ago, and really trying to get women in particular off of the treadmills and the Stairmasters and trying to get them to strength train, to raise their metabolism. And so I was doing this. I had it was mostly from 5 o'clock until 10 o'clock. I had 20-minute workouts. I charged about $20 per workout. This was 30 years ago, and I had most of my patients were 50 to 60. They were engineers, lawyers, people who worked down in downtown Seattle. They didn't have time to spend an hour or two at Bally's, 3 or 4 times a week. They come see me for 20 minutes, a couple times a week, and that would work. And this one woman, her 88-year-old uncle had been falling. And he'd fallen 2 or 3 times in the last couple of months. And she said he'd been on anti-vertigo medication. And she says it wasn't working. He was still falling. In fact, once it happened in the bathroom, in the shower, and it was particularly dangerous and scary. And she goes, I think he's just weak. Can I bring him in? Absolutely. And so he was very weak and frail. I mean, it was like a Tim Conway routine, where it's just he had a walker. He was all hunched over. It was just like a shuffling gait, right? And it took him so long just to get in and out of the room and in and out of the equipment that we only had time for 3 exercises. We did a leg press, a compound row, and a chest press. And those are the 3 basic moves that everybody should be making with their regular workout. Those compound movements that work almost every muscle in the body. And I didn't work them real hard that first workout. By the second and certainly the third, I would take him to failure. He was working to full intensity, okay? And he was only coming in once a week, 3 exercises, but to failure. And within the first 6 to 8 weeks, he went from a walker to a quad cane. A few weeks later, a single point cane. And by the end of 16 weeks, 4 months, he was walking without assistive device. And he was talking better as well. And clearly his cognitive function had improved in that time span. And one of the last times he came in, my boss and I were watching him come in, right? And they were, oh, Bob's coming in. He got dropped off at the front and everything. And there was a little curb cut, and we saw him look over at it and just ignore it and just literally kind of hop up that curb, and to see that happen in a short stretch, and I didn't know anything, I was just working him out hard. Didn't work on his diet, didn't work on the mobility, any of that kind of stuff. But his range of motion improved, his cognitive function improved, and so I kind of took that knowledge and was okay, I'm gonna save that for later. And later is now. I'm gonna take that knowledge and impart it to you. So I finished with. So the reason I broke up with Bob is I graduated and moved down to Portland, Oregon, but eventually got into PT school, where I got my master's degree at the University of Washington, and I kind of playing the long game with my career. I wrote my my master's thesis on high intensity strength training in the elderly population. And, really what it says, what I found is that high intensity absolutely is the most effective. The harder you work, the better the results. Medium intensity, medium results. Low intensity, low results. And walking programs hardly did anything. And in all of the research, projects out there, no injuries reported, okay? Of course, right? When you're working with somebody, the therapist or somebody working with you carefully, you're not going to get injured. Can you get injured lifting weights? Absolutely. Like CrossFit, right? But in the walking programs, the injury rate was anywhere from 6 to 21%. Okay, about 85 to 90% of them were overused strains. Like just plantar fasciitis, knee pain, hip bursitis. Okay, every once in a while, someone would sprain an ankle or fall and hurt themselves, but most of them were just overuse injuries. So, the most important thing that I found is that only strength training keeps you independent, living in your home in your 70s and 80s. No walking programs, stretching programs, no pill. Okay, if you want to stay, in your house, living by yourself, with your family, with your spouse, doing the things you enjoy, you got to start strength training. It has to be the essential component of your exercise program. If you're skipping it, you're blowing it. Okay, people go to the gym and they do the fun stuff. Right? They burn a few calories, they sweat. But if you're just doing that, you're just wearing yourself out and not doing the constructive part. Okay. And so I got sidetracked with a career. And so I moved out here from Seattle. Basically I wanted to stay in Seattle. My wife wanted to move out here. So we compromised. Here we are 22 years later. It's true. And dry needling. If any of you have not experienced that, it could be very magical. If you've had pain that's undiagnosed, it hurts, but the pain is directly proportional to how bad your spasm is, how bad your knot is, how bad your trigger point is. Okay, my photographer is holding back laughs because she says it hurts. And then about 2.5 years ago, I opened up this place because I was sick of doing physical therapy after the fact. I didn't want to see you after your hip replacement, knee replacement, after your back surgery, after you've wasted 5 years of your life getting weak and tight and heavy. Okay, I want to see you before that happens. Okay, and the sooner you do it my way, my protocol, the better. So the goal is to get at-risk populations of menopausal, postmenopausal, and the elderly to properly strength train and perform pliability work, so you can get and stay healthy, active, and pain-free into your retirement years and beyond. Okay, so wherever you are. Okay, so I started doing this at 19, 20 years old. Okay, and I'm the only one okay, maybe Jason can do this, but most of my friends, almost anybody, I'm the only one who can dive for the volleyball, jump, and then still work out the next day and still walk the next day. Okay, so just trust me on this. Wherever you are in the process, this is the way you want to do it. And so here is the protocol. I'm going to get right to it. Okay, twice a week, strength training. Okay, this is an essential component of your exercise program. Do not skip this. Okay, I do like a little bit of a warm up. Okay, it's going to make your workout more efficient. Okay, adding a 5-minute to 10-minute dynamic warm up or with a roll. So getting on the bike, going for a walk, just doing some leg swings, just starting slowly. Okay, and then following by a SMART recovery. The SMART is self-mobilization, active rolling techniques. Okay, so these are things that you're going to take an active role in to help flush out the inflammation that you've created from the workout. And I will go into that. The day after strength training is your active recovery day. Okay, so I don't want you to sit down and do nothing, but I also don't want you doing anything strenuous. Okay, so my rule of thumb is nothing higher than a 3 or a 4 out of 10 on your own rate of perceived exertion. If you're having a hard time talking during the exercise, it's too much. It should be easy. Okay, because when you start stressing your body, all of a sudden your body says, oh, we're going on another long journey, and it does not release the growth hormones and IG factors. It thinks it's stress. Okay, so for 48 hours after your strength training workout, that's how much you should be actively recovering. So I want you to do things. Do Pilates, do yoga, swim, golf, hike, do whatever, but it should not be strenuous. And then again, follow it up with a SMART recovery. Throughout all these, wherever you are, the more rolling, the better. Okay, and if you're not sure what I might mean by rolling, I'll cover it. But twice a week. Okay, so if your strength training days are Mondays and Thursdays, the day after that is going to be your active recovery, and the day after that is when you should be feeling your best. Okay, so if you're training for a marathon or something like that, those are the days you do your long runs. But if you enjoy hiking, those are the days you're going to be planning on your long hikes. Gardening, sometimes with the weather here in New England, if I know there's going to be snow coming, I'll plan my workouts because I'm going to be shoveling. If I know it's going to be nice out and we're going to go for a hike, I might skip my leg day the day before and just really focus on rolling so that I'm fresh for that activity. but I really do believe in an outdoor cardio recreation. Being outdoors is just, like, it's what we're supposed to do. Vitamin D, depression, all those kind of things, and you're out there for longer periods of time. The idea is, I don't want you inside doing cardiovascular exercise that you don't like, okay? Because then you're basically doing a bunch of stressful things that you don't like, instead of enjoying the things that you do, okay? The idea is to get strong and mobilize so you can be out in the garden all day without killing your back. So you can hike the 48,000 footers without, like, having knee pain. So, but I really believe in finding an outdoor activity that you enjoy doing. So when you do it this way, you will have longer, better performance with fewer injuries. Simple as that. So I do want to talk a little bit about pain and nerves, okay? Because it's going to help with why you warm up and why you roll, okay? So I'm just going to just real quick here. Like so many of our aches and pains, are from nerves trapped in muscles, okay? Whether you want to call it a knot, a spasm, a trigger point, it starts when we're younger and we're pushing our bodies to the limit with, like, cramps, okay? Those first muscles of cramp are the later ones that are going to spasm, okay? And a trigger point is basically just a nerve that's trapped in that muscle that goes distally further along. So, for example, here in the piriformis in the butt, like that nagging pain in the butt, it starts, in the back, goes into the butt, and if left untreated, all of a sudden you start getting sciatic pain, going all the way down the back of the leg and into the the calf and the foot. And so, with those nerves trapped in the muscles, that's why we have to, like, warm up. If you don't, and you get into that, if you just go for like a quick sprint or a run, when that muscle's a little bit trapped, then you get a pull, right? And then it stays in spasm. And so, what I want you to really think about is, after your workouts, okay, if you don't do anything, all that inflammation that you just put in there from the workout is going to set into different body parts, okay? So if you're sitting, that's why I have this one up here with, like, the hip flexor. It's a real common one, okay? So you do a bunch of running, hiking, and everything. Your hip flexor is all activated, and then you sit with it in a shortened position. Everything tightens up, and now you get, quote unquote, IT band syndrome. Okay, but in reality, it's your whole vastus lateralis. And so that's why, like, rolling afterwards, you want to think about flushing out the inflammation that you just put in there, as well as kind of elongating some of these muscles, kind of like a tight dough in a rolling pin, kind of getting in there and literally trying to lengthen it. Because so many of these muscles that are in spasm in everybody, especially if you're over 45 and are active and sit a lot, where these spasms accumulate is in muscles that are difficult or impossible to stretch. So like all these ones, like your iliopsoas, your glute med, glute min, piriformis, all these muscles are up against the pelvis. The pelvis doesn't bend, okay? So you can't really stretch them. So if you're not rolling lacrosse ball, tennis ball, a little myofascial ball, like getting in there and elongating them, then you are going to have a problem. It's not a matter of like if, it's a matter of when. So warm up. And I'm a big fan of, like, review articles, meta-analysis, because what they do is it's not one study. They look at 55 or 60, throw out like 5 or 10 that were poorly done, and then include the ones that are proper. And when it's all said and done, this is what they say is like dynamic warm-ups, like leg swings, balancing, arm swings. Like basically get your body moving a little bit is definitely helpful. Research confirms that. Rolling before may or may not. Okay, some research shows that there's like no benefit, some benefit, but a lot of it shows that there's a small benefit. Okay, and I think if you don't have a problem, there's not much benefit. Okay, but if you have a problem area, I think like rolling that area before you do your activity is definitely a benefit. Okay, whereas holding a static stretch doesn't do much. Okay, so what I mean by that is if you're gonna stretch, I'm just holding a stretch. There's not a lot going on. Okay, I'm just kind of taking that nerve in the muscle and just pulling it like this. Okay, but if I bend the knee a little bit, lean forward, turn towards it, straighten the leg a few times, turn away from it, turn towards it, like do a few kicks. Now what I'm doing, I'm activating that muscle, and I'm massaging it, working it, okay? Teasing that nerve out and getting ready for my activity. And so simply just moving through your stretches can make a big difference. Okay, like I said, strength training should absolutely be like the focal point of your exercise program, because it does all the good things, okay? Like increased metabolism, energy, bone density, pain and injuries, risk for falls, insulin sensitivity, depression, quality of life, everything, okay? It's the only thing that keeps you in your house by yourself in your 70s and 80s, okay? This is why we're doing this. And like, I think so often when people do strength train, they're just not working hard enough, or they're working so hard it's unsustainable, like a CrossFit, where they're just like throwing heavy weights around until their shoulder and their back hurts. I've seen some like mini catastrophic back injuries from CrossFit. I love the intensity of it, but it's unsustainable for a lifetime. So with strength training, like, some of the old school, like paradigms that make you think of is like tearing down or injuring muscles so that your body like builds up. I think it's a terrible analogy, especially after 40 or 45, because what research shows is the only thing that matters is your level of fatigue. Okay, if you are not tired, you're just going through the motions. Okay, so one of the best exercises long term is a wall sit, and there's no movement. You're just sitting there, until you hate your life, until you have fatigue, until you are shaking and you can barely stand. Research has shown that's the best long-term exercise, not just for strength, but for cardiovascular risk factors, like blood pressure. It lowered your blood pressure greater than a blood pressure medication in a 12-week study. And again, your side effects are strength. So what I say is the goal is to maximize muscle fatigue, okay, with a minimum of wear and tear. So like basically moving very slowly or holding static positions. And as long as, like, again, like the catalyst, the stimulus is fatigue. If you're not physically tired, you're just going through the motions. The goal really is failure, like that fatigue. Okay, that's what works. When you get that fatigue, that's when you release the growth hormones, testosterone, and IG factors. And so I didn't make this up. It's been around for a long time. If you look in the research, it's under time under tension. There's been a few books and programs over the years. Super Slow, The Slow Burn. This guy Doug McGruff is one of my favorites. Body by Science. There's been like, but the idea, the concept is, you want to lift the weight as slowly as you can keep it smooth, and you want to lower it as quickly as you can control it. Okay, now there's going to be differences for different types of movements. And essentially, so for example, for like a squat, okay, I might pause down in the low position because that's still effortful. But up in the upper position, I'm not going to pause up here because that feels easy. So I might be like quickly come down from that position, pause, and up very, very slowly, just enough to keep it smooth. So when we say 10 seconds, it might be 10 seconds for a squat. It might be 8, okay? But for like a calf raise, with a 4 or 5 inch range of motion, it might be 5 seconds, But as long as you're getting that fatigue, that's the only thing that really, really matters. So again, just use moderately heavy weights. Slow down until they feel heavy. You don't need 2 or 3 or 4 sets. Okay, if once you've fatigued the muscle, you have stimulated the growth mechanism. You've turned on that switch. You don't need to turn it on again. Turning it on again, trying to get yourself more fatigued, just makes it more difficult to recover from. And so, like when I put on here, I say like 1 or 2 sets. It's basically like when you're first getting like started with the exercises. Like it takes some practice and some skill to work hard enough for 1 set to be sufficient. Okay, so what I say is, like, for right now, do a couple of sets. That first set, especially when you're like just getting started, stop as soon as you think, maybe let me just check myself. Okay, you can kind of go, all right, I'm going to adjust the weights or not. Right, in the second set, I'm going to work a little harder. Okay, how much time in between? Okay, it depends. All right, like, there's benefits to going from machine to machine to machine, exercise to exercise. Okay, that benefit is like, you're already pre-fatigued going to the next routine. Okay, so you're already like partially tired. Okay, it also gives you a great cardiovascular CrossFit workout. Okay, cross training workout. The benefit to taking a break, and this is where I am now, is just like a 90-second, 120-second break where you just stretch, roll, collect yourself, and then before you go to the next machine. So you're like focusing on what you want to do, because then you also have recovered from that that exercise. So like rolling that afterwards would be a benefit. So 1 or 2 sets. Like I said, 3 to 6 exercises. The vast majority of my routines is just 3. Okay, a squat, a push, a pull. When I say a push up, a chest press, a bench press. Okay, it works. Your triceps, anterior shoulder, pecs. A pulling exercise, a pull up. So I'm going to demonstrate a set of pull-ups, just so you can kind of appreciate what we're doing here. Okay, because it does. How can we get benefits from just doing like 1 set? I will show you. It sucks. Okay, just very slowly. And if you can't do a pull-up, you can do pull-downs. Slightly faster down on the negative, because we are about 140% stronger on the negative, lowering, than we are raising. So it doesn't take very long when you're going this slow for things to get sucky. So as I'm fatiguing, I'm thinking about the individual components. So I want to make sure my biceps fail. So I'm going to really bend those elbows as I'm failing here. Now, as my back muscles are failing, I'm thinking about pulling my elbows down. So it just takes 1 set, but my forearms are exhausted, biceps, my back, I'm completely spent just from doing 1 set. But how long did that take? Forearms, biceps, back to the shoulder, your back. And the squats, all your legs. Okay, so around that, if you want to do a little bit more for your arms or your core or your butt, whatever, you can do another exercise or 2. And what I say is, like, at the end of your routine, you feel like, oh, I didn't work hard enough. Just go do what do you feel like you skipped out on? Go back, do 1 more set of whatever it is. And again, just twice a week. So there is some research that shows that you can get a little bit stronger by doing it 3 times a week. But there's other research that shows that, and this is my experience as well, when you're working out 3 times a week, when you're strength training 3 times a week, you're in a constant state of fatigue and regeneration. And so you wind up not doing as much. Okay, are there slightly better strength gains? Maybe, okay, but you're not moving as much, and that leads to other problems. Because that's the whole point. You want to do stuff, right? So here's my point with this study from 2013, 72 women, 60 to 72, 16 weeks, aerobic and strength. So they did, one group did 1 strength training session and 1 aerobic. The other group did 2 strength training, 2 aerobic. Third group did 3 strength training, 3 aerobic. Okay. I believe the workouts were 40-ish minutes, 45. And so after the 4 months, the group that did 1-on-1 put on it wasn't a huge difference, but the 1 strength training group did 1.3 pounds of muscle. Well, you can see this. And then the thing that's really interesting though is the fat loss. So the first 2 make sense, right? The 1-on-1 lost 2.4 pounds of fat. You double that, and they lost 4.2 pounds of fat. All of a sudden, you add a 3rd strength training and a 3rd cardio, and all of a sudden, they don't lose as much. It was better to do 1-on-1. And you can see their body fat percentage, it reflects that. So I'm going to look at total energy expenditure here. There's a lot of information here. So, but the take-home message here is that the group that did 3 and 3, at the end of 16 weeks, their metabolism went down 3.2%. Their overall energy expenditure, okay? And I think this is what a lot of women experience. Okay, I'm just going to try even harder. I'm going to do even more cardio. I'm going to eat even less. And your body goes, oh yeah? And it makes adjustments, Okay, if you're not doing like either high intensity intervals with your cardio or you're doing strength training, then this is what happens. And to further my point here, what I've done here is I just did the can I go up here? So what we're looking at here is here's like the blue ones are the calories burned outside of exercise. Okay, and so these orange ones are the calories burned during exercise. And what I want you to appreciate is like this group that did 1 and 1, they're moving a little bit more, but look at how much more life energy they have per day after doing like 2 and 2. And the group that added the third one, they're down to 417 daily active calories opposed to 793. That's a huge difference. And this is why I'm asking you to sometimes maybe just do less, but also listen to your body, you know, because like everybody is different. I'm a big believer in that. And so this is like that point is like when it comes to, you know, not just your overall metabolism, but what I call your active metabolism, the things, your other activities, you know, a 34% increase or a 26% decrease. Huge difference. So, rolling. Simply, basically, when I looked at all the research, I was trying to like figure out like how to put this in a succinct couple of sentences. Improve performance sooner with fewer injuries. You'll be less sore, right? Because you flushed it out. You're gonna be more range of motion. Research shows this. Now, pressure pain threshold. So what that means is, you know, like how hard can I push on your muscles before it hurts? Okay, and so like, yes, exactly. So if I can barely press on your muscle, right? How does it feel at rest, right? You know, like, and how does it feel when you go to contract those muscles, right? It's not a good thing. So when you roll, you are less sensitive to pressure, and you just have less pain with movement. And research has not shown that there's an increase in total energy expenditure, but I would expect that there would be based on those other factors. And so what the research shows is, you know, like is 90 to 120 seconds within the first 30 minutes, okay, you know, per body part. So take that with a grain of salt. You know, what do we consider a body part? You know, is it a muscle? Is it a group of muscles? You know, like I'll do it for like a couple of minutes, you know, like per like kind of section, you know, basically like, oh, that feels good. Okay, now I'm going to move on. And generally, you can tell if you're still tight. So like, do it until like you feel like you're done. Okay, and like, how hard do you do it? How hard do you want somebody else to do it? Okay, so if you're really sensitive, be gentle, you know, and kind of work your way up to it. But if you're like healthy and tight, sometimes you need somebody like you get in there. You know, what I tell my students is, you know, Hulk mash, okay? And it definitely says within the first 30 minutes of activity, but sometimes 30 minutes is too long. You know what I mean? Like if you've ever like gone for a long hike, you know, got in the car and then like just 10 minutes later, you go to a restaurant, you're like already like stiff. That just goes to show you the sooner the better. But there's definitely, you know, like research shows that 30-minute mark is kind of a breaker. All right. So I'm just going to go over this quickly because there's foam rolling is a kind of like a self-myofascial release, and the smart rolling is a self-active release. So, all right. So if I was going to roll these muscles in my butt, the piriformis sciatic nerve goes right through here. Okay. So the rolling, again, tight dough in a rolling pin. Okay. But a smart rolling is making a self-active release. Okay. So there's two different techniques. You can do a contract, relax. So what I'm going to do is I'm finding that trigger point. And now I'm going to push down, contract that muscle as I keep the pressure on there and kind of work my way in there, kind of sneak up on it neurologically. The other thing I can do is find that spot and then move my muscle back and forth underneath it. So I'm going to do a little bit of internal, external rotation, a little flexion, extension. I'm going to move over just a little bit, okay? And the difference is, again, imagine that like that nerve trapped in the muscle. So myofascial release is just kind of like pushing that muscle off the nerve. And active release like that is I'm compressing that muscle in the nerve. And I'm using that nerve, activating that nerve to tease it out from the muscle. Okay, and that's been shown to be about 35% more effective. But you don't start with that. You warm up, you do the myofascial release, and then if you have a really trouble spot, the smart active release can be very effective. All right, I'm surprised by how many of my patients do not eat enough protein. The USDA guidelines of 46 to 56 grams per day really are not nearly enough. That is for an average person's weight who is not moving, if they're not going to like lose any muscle. Okay, but if you are going to gain some muscle at any age, the AARP has recently upgraded theirs to 25 to 30 grams per meal. So you can see how that quickly adds up to more than 46 to 56 grams per day. And I think what's really important, and I think this is where I'm going, is this will be a range, okay? For most days, 0.45 to 0.6. See, there's gonna be a little bit of math involved, okay? But when you're really like postmenopausal, elderly, and you're actively strength training, it should be like 0.7 to 1 gram, okay? In that range. And before you start making any adjustments, I think it's important to do a protein audit. Use the, what is it, MyFitnessPal, right? It's a great app for, and the paid ones are even better because you can just like scan things, and it'll tell you all the information on there to make it more easy. But figure out what you are doing before you make any adjustments, because I don't want you to like start eating a whole lot more calories or eating so much protein that you're starting to feel bloated and constipated. But there is a magical window, especially for women. You just have less room for error for eating that protein within the first 30 minutes of your workout or activity. Okay, when I say activity, like yes, even shoveling your driveway, or even doing some yard work. If you've been like stressing yourself, what I always say is like, you don't want to tell your body you're going on a long, stressful journey with not a lot of resources. You want to say everything's fine, chill, no stress. We have plenty of protein. I'm just not strong enough to lift this. And when you tell your body that, your body gets strong and lean. So basically, the sooner the better. Now, what does that look like? 4 eggs, 2/3 of a can of tuna, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese. I strongly encourage you to look at the labels, okay, and like look at the calories and the amount of protein. Okay, you can look at your protein to carbohydrate ratio. All those things are important. But like if you're not eating protein with that meal, it's just going to go to your belly and butt. Like I said, men under 40 make it 2 hours. Women over 50 that have less than 30 minutes. So it kind of goes with like the rolling, like the sooner the better. Like I said, cardio recreation. Get your heart up. Outside, doing something you enjoy, okay? Preferably without getting hurt. Like when I say 20 to 40 minutes, when you start going over 40 minutes, you start getting a catabolic state. You start burning muscle. This is why our metabolism like lowers as we age. Like the more we do, if it's just cardiovascular exercise, we start to like waste muscle away, unless we include high intensity intervals. Okay, and the difference between the high intensity intervals and regular like low steady state is you fatigue your muscles. Okay, like that's it. Like that high intensity, when you start putting resistance on there and going really hard, oh man, my muscles are getting tired. Ding, 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 ding. We're going to start releasing the growth hormones, IG factors, and testosterone. If we do not do the high intensity and we're just doing low steady state, after 40 minutes, we start burning muscle. So, which is fine if you're doing strength training on Mondays and Thursdays. So high intensity interval training with the cardio, you have to be really careful after the age of 40, 45, 50, if you're going to be doing running high intensity intervals, okay? Because like if you're not a runner, sprinting is a bad idea, okay? So like it's just, that's where like bikes are really nice, because even with mild to moderately arthritic knees, the bike is not only not harmful, but is of benefit, because you're strengthening the muscles, you're going through a fuller range of motion, you're not on them, pounding them. And it's easier to include those high intensity intervals. So I included a couple of ways to kind of get started in there. There's no magic. And so basically what I tell people, around here is like live an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. I don't expect everybody to go vegan or vegetarian, but like the less meat I still want you to eat protein, but the less from meat, the better. The tried and true every year, the Mediterranean diet like almost always comes out on top. And it's like I say, it's fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, fatty fish, not just, Alfredo sauce and garlic bread. But include, like, there's more anti-inflammatory foods, like basically add things that are going to reduce inflammation, like, berries, broccoli, turmeric, and mushrooms. But I think the most important thing is limiting and avoiding sugar, alcohol, ultra-processed foods, okay? If you're a woman over 50 that wants to lose weight and you are drinking alcohol or eating sugar, like it's hard. like it's hard. Like, you have no room for error. So, like, I strongly encourage you to do the best you can to close to eliminating those. Yeah, I know it's a bummer because some of my favorite things. But yeah, it's like that also, like, the sleep and stress. Yes, I know, like, and that's another thing with like sitting and stress. Like, if you have a stressful job and you're sitting, you're very likely not going to be able to exercise your way out of that. With the stress factors, sitting for any more than 2 to 3 hours at a time, your body starts releasing hormones that almost kind of put you in this crisis mode. Yeah, and it's not just musculoskeletal and aches and pains with your neck and your butt, but it is cardiovascular risk factors. So I do encourage and believe in meditation. Okay, and if you're not familiar with it, Headspace, Calm are a couple of good apps. On Netflix, there's a Headspace guide to meditation, 5 or 6 episodes, 20 minutes each. It can change your world. At the very least, after your exercise, what I say is like RPM. Roll, protein, meditate. Okay, so even if you don't have like half an hour to sit and contemplate your existence, if you just like take a deep breath, stay off your phone, and just be present with your body while you're rolling, and just like think about, where am I hurting? Oh yeah, right there. Just relax. Try to get your cortisol levels low. Creatine monohydrate. Okay, for years this has been around. Like back when I was at Nautilus in Seattle, and people would ask me back then, should I take it? And it was harder to do research back then because it was in its infancy. But I was at the University of Washington, so I could pull up some stuff, and it was clear it worked while you were taking it. Okay, but there was no, at that time, long-term studies, and I was always playing the long game. I didn't trust anything, so I was like, I wouldn't try it yet. Let's see what happens. But it's been out there for 30 years, and like the more research that's out there, like the better it is for everybody. It was mostly for like people in their basically late teens, 20s, sometimes 30s, for athletic performance, or just to have like more muscle, more energy for their workouts, and less body fat. Who doesn't want that? Okay, and like, so what they're finding is like it's good for old people too. Okay, and it's basically it's for muscle recovery and post exercise, increased lean body mass over time. But the new stuff in the last couple of years is it improves cognitive function, dementia in all aspects. So memory, attention time, processing speed, and depression. Like basically that brain fog, that malaise, and they think it works on like brain inflammation. Okay, it's in conversely. So this is the road we want to go down, opposed to this chronic inflammation where we're eating terrible food. Like when you have a hangover and your brain is literally inflamed, you're contributing to your dementia. Like that's just a fact. And so we want to go the other direction. Like what I say is like it's fun to drink, but it feels better not to. And so at this point, after 30 plus years, it is widely researched, considered safe for like most individuals. I'm pretty sure it's all at this point. Menopause. So there's a recent research study that said that 55% of women aged 30 to 34 first encounter their first symptom with menopause. The first ones are right here. Typically anxiety, depression, irritability, brain fog, malaise, hot flashes, and sleep disturbances. But the average age that they first consult their medical doctor is 54, because they don't really there's not a problem until they start gaining weight. Okay, and like it happens, like it starts in your mid 30s. Okay, just like those hormones start changing a little bit, and so your weight may not change in your 40s, what your body composition does. You start losing a little bit of muscle, you start gaining a little fat, and your clothes don't quite fit as well. And at a certain point, like once that metabolism, like it gets low enough, you're in full menopause. I'm not going to say it's too late, but you better start strength training sooner than later. And talk to your doctor before you're 54, please. Yeah, so just to review, so here's my protocol from start to finish. Like twice a week strength training. I can't stress this enough. Don't skip this, okay? A little warm up before, little cool down afterwards, followed by the smart recovery the day after that. So like I like to do like a Monday, Thursday strength training workout, okay? So that Tuesday, Thursday, I can do whatever I want. So even if I don't work out, I'm still gonna like move, okay? But I'm not gonna do anything stressful. Wednesday and the weekend is when I'm gonna play. That's when I'm gonna like burn my calories and do my stuff. I'm still gonna roll afterwards, okay? And it might be Saturday or Sunday that I'm gonna be doing that stuff. A lot of people ask me if I'm gonna do my cardio on the same day, do I do it before or after? Definitely after. Okay, I've felt this way for 30 years because I don't want you to be tired going into the important part. Okay, but and new research has shown that strength training before cardio is about like 20 to 30% better. Okay, or you could say doing your cardio before your strength is about 20 to 30% worse. Okay, they're still better than doing nothing. They have a control group for sure, but like if you want to get the most out of your workout, you do the strength training first. And then you just do that for the rest of your life, and then you will be pain-free and be able to do things forever. So I don't care how old you are, the sooner you start doing it my way, the better. Okay, I want to change your musculoskeletal health trajectory. Okay, so I know not many people can do a pull-up, but there are other things that we can do at a lower level. I don't care if you're hurt, okay? Don't wait to get like unhurt because I can fix you as well, okay? I'm a physical therapist with 22 years of experience, one of the most experienced dry needlers in New England, okay? So whether you're hurt or want to just get healthy, come see me and I can fix you.